Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Super Wario Brothers, brought to us by the ROM hacker known as Googie. Now, I saw this on a recent episode of Mike and Bootsy Plays from Cinemassacre, and after seeing them struggle through it and seem like a halfway decent ROM hack, I wanted to play it for myself. After playing it for the last couple of days, I decided to go ahead and actually do a special play it through for it. So here we go with Super Wario Brothers, the ROM hack for the NES. When you first boot up the game, you'll notice that you can play as one or two player or one or two villains, with the second player taking control of Luigi. And interestingly enough, the guy who created this, Googie, also did a Waluigi ROM hack. While I was searching for this one, I found and came across that one. So if you're interested at all in maybe seeing me play through that one, be sure to comment down below. Now, while this hack is extremely difficult, as you'll notice as I go through it, the key to it is, though, I don't think it's overly difficult, like a Kaizo Mario style. It's just difficult, but relatively fair. My biggest gripe as far as difficulty goes with this particular ROM hack is the use of the troll blocks, or the hidden blocks. A lot of times there will be small platforms that you'll go to leap off of, but end up hitting your head on a hidden block, causing your demise, so you always have to be on the lookout for that. You've also probably noticed throughout the course of the first level here that they did use some later Mario game sprites in the game. All the normal Mario 1 sprites have kind of been changed up, including not only Mario, but the Koopa Troopa, Hammer Bro, and Goomba. And in fact, you're going to see a lot of Hammer Brothers. There is a ton of Hammer Brothers throughout the course of this ROM hack, as well as a lot of Lakitus, much more so than the normal amount that would have been in a regular version of Super Mario Brothers. I love the use of different color palettes and areas for the different stages. There is a reuse of a bunch of stages when you get later on, basically repeating levels, but they're harder versions of earlier ones, so you really always have to be on your toes. There's some great usage of the rotating fireballs throughout the course of the game as well, which I do enjoy, or hate at the same time. Especially, there's a couple ones in later levels where they're so big, they cover so much space, you really have to get away if you're going to be able to not end up getting hit by the rotating fireballs. Also, unlike a lot of ROM hacks I've played for Super Mario, it is a full Mario ROM hack in that it is 8 worlds with 4 levels in each. Like I said, a few levels repeat with harder versions, but there is no maze castles for you to go through, and even the final stage doesn't have the puzzle elements of it, though pieces of that still remain. There is one minor gripe. There is some glitching that can potentially happen. One time while playing through it, a spring glitched and disappeared on me, and it actually froze my character in place when I tried to jump at where the sprite was supposed to be, locking it up until I ran out of time for me to lose a life and then be able to pick back up at the beginning of the level. After doing some pretty tricky platforming and getting to the very end, we move on to 1-4, the first of the castles, of course, of Super Wario Brothers. The color scheme is a bit different with a blue shade here, and there's a good use of platforms throughout with the rotating fireballs, the beetles are around. Pretty simple overall, and actually easier than some of the earlier levels. This spot right here, though, in particular, later on you redo this castle, but there's rotating fire on every one of the mini platforms, which makes it one of the toughest spots in the whole game. After completing a castle, you'll run into Toad, who says, "Peach ain't here, go save her, baby." I don't know why that makes me laugh, it does, and then the ending in particular really makes me laugh, but we'll see that, of course, later on. At the beginning of 2-1, we're going to have to do a hidden block, and then do a big leap over to one of these rotating fireball platforms. One thing you're going to have to get used to with the rotating fire platforms is, since they move pretty fast, and they're usually quite large, you have to be quick to get off of the platforms once you land there. They don't have a whole lot of safe space throughout the course of this particular ROM hack. Stay on this plant pipe, and then fire down at the Hammer Brother down to the lower right before continuing on. Use your fire flower to the most maximum advantage as you can. Do everything possible to try to keep a hold of it, really defend off the numerous amounts of Hammer Bros that are all throughout the course of the game. There are 2 underwater-themed stages for us to tackle, the first one being 2-2. Both of them are similarly designed, with a lot of the mechanic being having to escape bloopers, and they're relatively sporadic pattern. I've never been the best at dodging bloopers in classic Mario. This level is a good taste, though, for what's to come later on, as they have a much trickier pattern. The bloopers throughout the course of here are just kind of going to go straight forward. They're not always going to come back at you. They can just keep on moving through. Don't bother you. As long as you're not running directly into them, you shouldn't have too much trouble. But this place repeats later on in the game, in which case the bloopers have their more sporadic pattern where they can actually kind of chase you down, making that spot in particular extremely difficult to get through. I've also never liked in underwater levels in Mario being kind of sucked into the abyss down below, and you have to really mash the swim button in order to get up. But overall, this is kind of a nice break for the most part, because like I said, a very difficult ROM hack. This level in particular, though, isn't nearly as difficult as levels that we've already actually tackled, and then some of the ones that are going to be coming up. 2-3 is one of my favorite types of levels. These levels with the jumping cheeps, where your goal is mostly just to run away quickly as possible. I love the idea of just being able to sprint through most of the level. Now, there's a couple of times where I may have to slow down just a bit, but for the most part I can usually outrun the cheeps, and I just find these levels one of the most fun and enjoyable experiences in any of the classic Marios. Two, 4, be very careful not to run off the very edge at the very beginning. There is a mushroom or fire flower in that first block. Find the hidden block and then bounce your way up here. It's really hard here. You have to be really quick and maneuver around the rotating fire platforms. Now, up here is a jump that is hit or miss. All depends on where the flame is going to spawn. You want to kind of land on the edge, then make another immediate jump to either land on the Koopa Troopa or jump over the flame coming your way. Honestly, it's like a 50-50 chance whenever I try to make that jump, and unfortunately, you have to do another level just like this later on in the game, which is just as difficult, and that jump, it becomes even harder. So just keep that in mind, and it may take you a few tries in order to actually be able to get past that spot. Thankfully, even though I got hit, there are ways, of course, to get more power-ups. The game thankfully does have a decent amount of power-ups spread throughout the course of the ROM hack, so I do like that as well. Like I said, it's a punishing hard ROM hack, but not overly so. So you should be able to get power-ups throughout the course of it to get your mushroom and fire flower back throughout the course of a level or two before you end up losing it again. Thankfully here, you can get a mushroom, and then not too long after, be quick about it because of the Lakitu dropping down the spinies on top of you, but you should be able to have both that mushroom fire flower, and then you can use that to battle the Lakitu as well as the Hammer Bros throughout the course of the rest of the stage. There are a couple of Goombas on the staircase right at the end, but pretty easy overall once you get past the beginning part. Now 3-2 is another level filled with Hammer Bros. Just have your finger on, of course, the run as well as the fire button, so anytime one of these Hammer Bros gets in your way, you should be able to mow them down. You can take your time a little bit throughout the course of like the solid ground at least. Even with the Lakitu above, the fire flower should keep you safe for the most part. Without having it, though, throughout the course of this level, it's really tough. When it comes to dodging the Hammer Brothers in this game, it's best to try to go underneath of them when they do their sparingly jumps, but that's pretty much the case with even the original Mario. Hammer Brothers are unpredictable a lot of the times, and can be really hard to actually judge exactly when they're going to do things. I don't recommend trying to jump on their heads, though, throughout the course of it, unless you have a really clean shot, or you don't mind accidentally getting hit and losing your power-up or losing a life, as even when I've landed on the Hammer Brothers during the course of this particular ROM hack, I still ended up getting hit by a hammer that ended up spawning right at the same moment. Though, if you time it just perfectly, there is a way, of course, to land on without getting hit by a hammer, but it usually is not worth the risk. There's a couple of elevators on this dark blue palette level, but it's actually a really short level, though you will have another version of it a little bit later on, and we move on to 3-4, the third castle of this Super Mario ROM hack. You'll start off with a pretty long platform, and there's a huge rotating fireball here, so make sure you jump to it right with the right moment and then get past it quickly, so when it ends up coming back around, you won't be within its hit radius. Avoid the Koopa Troopas. You can use fire flowers to help you out, and there are some of the power-ups throughout the course of this level. There's a hammer bro above you, but some more Koopa Troopas. Overall, except for that very beginning, a pretty simple level. World 4, of course, is the halfway point here once we're able to complete it, and 4-1 starts off with the Lakitu overhead, just like it does in regular 4-1 of Super Mario. There's a bunch of gaps here with the pipes, so your jumping skills will need to be beefed up if you're gonna be able to get past it. Sometimes wait for the right moment, or you can sometimes also risk it using the fire flower, of course. If you time it right, you can take out a plant before you land on the platform itself and end up getting hit. "4-2 is another underground themed stage, and it starts off with a humongous jump that you can only make it if you jump at the absolute last moment. I hate this jump in particular. If you're able to somehow survive it, slow down just for a second, catch your breath, and then continue on. Use the spring here, of course, to bounce yourself up, watching out for the beetle on a few more platforms. Honestly, past that beginning part, not too challenging. You may have to watch out for a few particular jumps waiting for the plants to drop back down into the pipes, but the piranha plants, even with as many as there are here, overall not too bad. Be sure to hit the hidden blocks though here, and there's another one right there as well, but if you jump at the right angle, you'll end up bypassing it and not activate it, but do keep an eye out for all the hidden blocks throughout the course of the stages. Like I said, I hate the troll blocks, but the ROM hacker definitely used quite a few of them during the course of this. In 4-3, you'll have a bunch of the giant treetop-like platforms. I do like the texture that is on all of these. It just gives it a little bit more of a detailed look. There are, of course, the typical hammer bros that we've been getting used to, and some really tricky platforming here. Anything that's a singular jump and multiple singular platform jumps in a row are always difficult, but overall not a relatively long level, so even if you end up messing up a couple of times, it shouldn't take you too long to get through it. Now 4-4, start off by running down to the single platform and then make a big leap over to the right. Land safely and then jump up to the piranha plant, make it safely over a couple more platforms, and you'll be able to land here. There's actually a Lakitu inside of this Bowser castle, which I think is just a cool little touch. It definitely adds some added unnecessary difficulty to the level overall, but he doesn't follow you throughout the entire level. Once the Bowser fireballs start to spawn, the Lakitu will back off, in which case you can then go to Bowser. It is one of the hammer-throwing Bowsers, so wait for the right opportunity. Run through or jump over him or take him out with a fire flower, and then move on to 5-1. 5-1 starts off with an immediate barrage of Hammer Brothers, so if you have Fire Flower, you'll be okay. Without it, it can be hard as heck. to try to get past all these Hammer Brothers throughout the course of the beginning of the level. In fact, the first time I was playing through the ROM hack, I actually thought this would be like the final set of levels. 5-1 is extremely challenging, not only with the Hammer Brothers, but also with all of the bullet bills that are going to be coming your way. Wait for the right opportunities to jump between any set of them, as you'll have strings of Hammer Brothers, followed by a group or two of bullet bills, and then more Hammer Brothers. Here I like to get a running jump by jumping to here and then a small run just for one step in order to make it way over to the other part, and just a couple more bullet bills and one more Hammer Brother before I can finally complete the stage. Starting off the next level, you'll have a couple more bullet bills as well as more Hammer Brothers, but they aren't as congested or as many in a row as there was in the previous stage. Since the shooting patterns of bullet bills, of course, is pretty unpredictable, it can be rather difficult to try to make it through without accidentally getting hit by any of them. Right here, you want to jump up and use your Fire Flower to take out the Hammer Brothers and a couple more of the cannons there before making it to the end of the stage. At the beginning of the level, wait for the piranha plants to go down, then jump to this next pipe. Wait here for a second or two. If you have Fire Flower, you can jump up and hit Lakitu. And in fact, with a nicely timed running jump, you can actually land on Lakitu in order to take it out due to the kind of weird hit detection of classic Mario. You're going to have bullet bills flying at you throughout the course of this level. Be as cautious as possible, but once again, this is a relatively short stage, so that helps us out. Now for 5-4, at the beginning, drop on down to the platform. You'll have another giant rotating flame, which can be really difficult to get around. Land here, hit the hidden block, jump over the flame, and then attempt to go over the wall. I recommend waiting for the flame to go past you a second time. Now here you have more of the single platforms with the rotating flames, and they're moving fast, so you also have to move fast. Thankfully, I'm big enough here where even if I mess up this jump, at least I won't die, but like I said, one of the hardest jumps to make in this game. This level much more difficult than the first time we had to go through it just due to those intense jumping spots throughout the course of it. But if you're able to complete this, you should be able to complete the rest of the game. This is one of the tougher areas for sure. We have 2 more worlds left, and the next up is a night level in 6-1. You have the big mushroom platforms. I like the graphical stylings on the platforms themselves, as well as another Lakitu is in the house, so be careful of him as you're running from mushroom platform to piranha plant pipe and back and forth and so on. You can, of course, take out the Lakitu with a Fire Flower on one of the higher platforms, and at the end, make sure you hit a hidden block before attempting to jump over and go to the flagpole. (6-2) has the dark blue scale to it. It's actually like a redone version of the first level of the game with the Hammer Brother at the very beginning with the spring. Still a pretty basic level once you get past that opening, as that's the toughest part. There's another spot coming up with these piranha plant pipes where you'll have to make a relatively large leap. It's not an impossible jump by any means, but the hardest part is actually jumping up here, trying to jump off a platform and get to a platform directly above it by just slightly going out and holding back on the D-pad. It can be a bit difficult, but overall it can be done. (6-3) is another one of the running cheap style levels, but unfortunately this one is not as straightforward or as cool in my opinion, because you're not going to be able to just run through. You have to do a lot more platforming, from the treetop-like platforms, taking out some piranha plants, and also dealing with the Cheeps, and even the added factor of a couple of bloopers and bullet bills to make things even more enjoyable than they already were in the level. There's a lot going on, so I appreciate the amount of enemies. Almost every enemy type just about makes an appearance in this level alone. Just like a lot of the third levels of worlds, not exceptionally long before we end up at the end and now going inside of 6-4, the 6th castle of the game. You have a couple of small platforms down below. You have some jumping flames. I like the sprite work on the actual jumping flames. Stage starts off rather easy, but this is where it's tough, trying to jump up here, and unfortunately, I end up making a big mistake with my secondary jump. I don't hold the jump button down long enough, and the momentum isn't enough to carry me up to the platform, so unfortunately, I end up losing a life there. Hidden here, though, is a mushroom at the very beginning, so I can easily grab that and continue along my way and give that tough platforming area another shot. I find it better if I go faster through the area instead of taking my time. Thankfully, this time I'm able to make it past. It's not much more into this level, though. That's the end of it as we run and make it to Bowser, leaping between a couple of hammers. It's a small gap. I don't know why I even risked doing that, but either way, I'm able to make it through, and now we have 2 worlds left in this ROM hack of Super Mario Bros., known as Super Wario Bros. Like I said, if you're interested in seeing the Waluigi ROM hack, I haven't played it yet personally, but it wouldn't probably take me too long. If it's about the same difficulty level, it should only take a couple of days for me to be able to put some practice into it. So if you're interested, be sure to comment down below if you're interested in potentially seeing that. This level, as you can see, has a ton of Hammer Brothers and Bullet Bills. With so much on screen at once, the game can goof up a few times and cause Hammer Brothers not to actually be able to throw hammers. So because of that, there's actually an advantage to having that many enemies right there at that one spot. 7-2 is the second of the underwater levels. It's the same design as the first underwater level, but it has the much harder bloopers to deal with. The only way to make it through this without getting hit at all is a lot of baiting of the bloopers, trying to get them to bunch up together before attempting to swim up. You'll have very brief moments, like right here, you have to kind of really mash the button to get above. Drop down in the small opening. Bunch them all together and then quickly mash the button upwards and try to get past them before they're able to keep moving towards you. There's a lot of bloopers here, and because of their pattern, they will try to run into you and chase you down. Big open gaps so you can try to get pulled down. And one of the things I've always hated, if you end up bumping your head on these low blocks here, it can instantly throw you underneath the current, and you'll end up losing a life that way, just because even if you're mashing the button, sometimes it messes up a bit, and you could end up falling down into the blue abyss. Once you're past that whole opening area with the bloopers, the rest of the stage isn't as challenging. Still tough, but that opening spot, wow, is especially tough. 7 number 3 is another running bridge segment with Cheeps, though this one's a more traditional one where I can actually run along bridges and fight off the Cheeps, but there is a lot of Hammer Bros, so you have to have the Fire Flower to really help you out. Trying to just run through this without any sort of power-up is definitely going to be much more difficult to handle. Though, the level still remains fun, especially if you do have that Fire Flower, because you can kind of take out the Hammer Brothers as you're running. Be careful at the end, especially with all those Cheeps at that very last spot before I hit the flagpole and move on to Castle 7-4. Now for 7-4, start off by running across. You have a little gap with some lava and another Lakitu inside of a Bowser castle, which, like I said, cool idea, just adds that bit of extra challenge here. Not as rough in this stage with the regular platforming. I guess the addition of the Lakitu was enough to make the level hard enough without adding too many really troubling platform spots. You can take out the Lakitu if you're able to stand on these blocks and use the fire flower in order to get rid of him, which will definitely end up helping you out. Just wait for those right opportunities and moments to jump on those plants here. You're going to want to get the hidden block to appear. This is a tough jump because you'll bounce your head off the top and land. You want to make sure that you're able to stay put. Doing another small jump once you land a lot of times, even on a singular platform, will stop the momentum, allowing you to move back just a little bit so that you don't end up sliding off of the singular platform altogether. Once you're able to get past Bowser, though, it's on to the 8th and final world of Super Wario Brothers. No surprise that we're going to have some Hammer Brothers to deal with, and you'll have the large bridge segments. Don't have Cheep Cheeps to worry about, though. This jump in particular is especially troubling because of the way it's set up and the Koopa Troopa that's waiting for you. Right after that, you have a spring and some more Hammer Brothers, and then be able to do a couple of more bridge segments. Thankfully, just Koopa Troopas on these. Watch out for the singular flying Paratroopa here, and jump to the singular platforms, and then a couple more Piranha Plant pipes. This is a relatively lengthy stage, though, so you have to be on your toes the whole time. You don't want to accidentally have to redo the level. Here, you can make a big leap and skip one of the plants if you want to. Make a couple of small leaps here, and then make it to the end to hit the flagpole and move on to 8-2. Now for 8-2, start off by jumping on the pipe. You can actually stand on that pipe and fire at the Lakitu. Now this Lakitu won't last long, he ends up disappearing, which I think is set to what we normally would have done in regular 8-2 of Mario, where he kind of shows up only for that very beginning of the stage and then disappears once you hit that spring 1-up segment. After that, you'll have a whole series of pipes and introduce some new cannons with bullet bills at the ready to come flying towards you. Now, coming up in just a few moments after this big pipe and make a big giant leap to the right, that spring right there glitched on me once when I was playing through on the practice runs, so just for warning, there is a possibility. And like I said, if that ends up happening, if you jump where the spring is, you'll just freeze in place, and you'll have to wait for the timer to run out. But if you don't land on that spot and you have the ledge to the left, you could still technically jump into the hole and lose a life, but not have to wait that entire time for the time to expire. This is one of those things you have to deal with ROM hacks. They're always going to have those little nuances and glitches just because of the nature of what they are. 8-3 has that dark blue color scheme to it, which I do happen to enjoy. Wait on this platform, of course. There's going to be some bullet bills that you're dealing with throughout the course here, as well as plenty of Hammer Brothers, because of course there is. You should have expected that by now, especially when we're near the end of the game. There's a whole group of them here, and in fact there's so many it can actually slow the game down a bit, so be careful with that. The slowdowns, while they're not only a nuisance, can of course affect your timing on jumps. Continue along the last few Piranha Plant pipes, and go into the castle and enter 8-4. Now normally in 8-4 for Super Mario Brothers, there's a maze to it. You have to go through the right pipes in order to make it the other segments of the castle. Here, we're going to be just going straight on through. Now, some of the pipes you can actually still go down, and they will reset you to other areas, but you'll just end up repeating places, so it's best just to ignore that aspect and just keep moving yourself forward. There's a whole bunch of platforming with the pipes, but also Hammer Brothers for you to deal with along the way. There's a lot of them, so hopefully you'll have a Fire Flower going into this level. Without it, it probably would be a nightmare to try to get through it. Be careful with these couple of Hammer Brothers. These are some of the tougher ones in this level just because of their setup. After a few more pipes, you'll come to a small bridge. Going down the pipe at the end will actually take you back to a previous area in the level. And after a couple of more regular Hammer Brothers, it's time for the final Bowser. Take him out by jumping on, of course, the axe, or use your Fire Flower. And once she's done, you have saved Princess Peach. The dialogue here is just amazing. So there you go. Yes, thanks Wario, you saved me and my kingdom, my main man. Pimp me now, Big Daddy. Poetic, to say the least. But there you go, that is Super Wario Brothers, the ROM hack. I hope you enjoyed, and that will wrap up this episode of Play It Through. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a thumbs up or commenting down below. If you enjoyed this ROM hack, be sure to check out one I did a while back for Mike Tyson's Punch-Out 2015 remix. Pretty good ROM hack that made some parts easier and some parts harder for the classic game. I also recently did a play it through for a game that somehow is actually an officially licensed NES game, not a ROM hack, of Swamp Thing by THQ. I also, of course, need to thank all the members of my Patreon. Without your guys' continued support, I wouldn't be able to keep doing what I'm doing. If you would like to help out the channel as well, you can click the Patreon button, where you can become a supporter for the show. You'll get your name here, there's other cool incentives, and as little as $1 a month can really go a long way in helping out the channel. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.